Hi, I'm Vince.
And I'm Kate.
This is Evie, and we basically built this as a bit of a ski chalet on wheels. So yeah, we'll have a little look in and show you around. I initially decided to do a van, actually after watching one of Nate's videos, the 17-day camper van video, which I found to be really inspiring. And I obviously pinched a few ideas as well, which you'll probably see. So yeah, so without much ado, first off, I thought, because we're going to be using it skiing a lot, and just generally I think it's a good idea, we've built a proper bulkhead here. So I took out the grey one that was just like the metal one, and replaced it with basically a load of Celotex, a wooden frame and ply. And it just is a really good starting point to build a van off, because you've got a flat floor and a right angle with a nice big wall. So you can do a lot of building onto it, and it works really well as an insulator, because what you'll find is you go in the cab and it's baking in there, but you come in the back here and it's really cool. Whereas if you don't have that, you're going to have all that heat coming through, and it just makes it harder to heat up or cool down depending on where you are, especially in the Alps if it's -10 outside. You know, that's basically a fridge, whereas this is nice and cozy. So a quick top tip, which I think a lot of people don't do, which I think is a really good idea, is just down here, Velcro in the doormats, because after a year or two, they're gonna run out, they're gonna wear out, you're gonna want to replace them, and just getting them out to give them a shake, it's so much easier. Got a shower here. So this is really, for us, it's just to rinse our feet off. You know, if you're at the beach and you don't want sand all over the van, I mean, you can use it as a proper shower. You can just shut the door and like clip it on there, and then you can put a post in there, and you could put a curtain around it with magnets in, and you've got a shower. That's for letting water in. I've deliberately kept the water tank in the van under the sink, because I was worried about it possibly freezing up in the Alps, and then that wouldn't be ideal. So coming into the van a bit, we've got a hob. This is probably a little bit similar to Nate's a bit, with the seating and the hob and everything. A big hob is important because we love cooking, we love foods, and it works really well. So I can recommend that, a nice like big 3-burner. I've got a proper sink, which is a bit different. Just picked it off eBay. Someone was doing like, you know, a kitchen and they had a spare one, as you do. It was 20 quid and it made sense. It's really good because it's a draining board and a work surface. And a little top tip, I think, is just get a standard wooden chopping board. Just screw a couple of little battens in there, and it will sit in there. You can use it as a chopping board, and you can drive with it in there. It won't go anywhere. You don't need to worry about like building something to store it. So yeah, that works really well. Got general shelving. Got a nice little cupboard here, just for kind of the enamelware and just like storing random bits and pieces. And then again up here, just more storage. I think having a little hook here is quite handy for the key, just because you don't want to end up self-locking, and it's always good to know where the key is. This is another good idea. It's just somewhere to put your shoes. A lot of people don't think, you know, you're going to come in, it's wet and raining. You don't want to get water all over the place. So it's good just to have somewhere to put your shoes. And I will eventually build something here just to slot them in as well. This is something that's quite new, and it's a bit boring because it's like health and safety, but it's actually really good. That's equivalent to about a 2 kilogram fire extinguisher. You can spray it on any fire and it won't destroy what you spray it on, unlike a lot of extinguishers. I don't know, it might be, if you just like, have a look here. I keep the waste, and I keep a little waste container in here. And we've just got a cool box for now because we're using it for the Alps a lot. So the idea was that we just use the cab as a fridge, which works really well. But we might upgrade to something a bit nicer. That's the one thing that would make this van a lot better, would be having a fridge. So in terms of just what we've got for ventilation, we've got a Fiammo turbo vent fan, which goes in and out, which I really recommend. So it works just on a dial. So you can have it on really low and it barely makes noise, or you can have it like, it's like taking off at an airport. And you can basically have it so it goes in or out. So when we're cooking, and especially if you're somewhere cold and you want to keep all the heat in from your heater and cooking, it's really good for extracting all the vapor. And not getting condensation, which is kind of a bit of a no-no in the van, to try and just avoid that stuff. So window, I've just standard bonded window, nice little blind, which I like just because it makes it feel like it's not a van when you're lying in it. I'll talk about it a bit more when we're like down the other end, but there's nothing really when you're in the van and you shut all the doors and the window and the blind that gives it away as being a van. It's kind of, you feel like you're in a little chalet lodge. These cushions, my lovely girlfriend Kate made, and they just come off as well. And you can get into like kind of the more like utility battery side of it. So I've got the batteries in there, and I've also got a Propex heater and my fuse board, and it works really well. The solar charger's in there. That's an MPPT, which again picked up from Nate, making sure I got the right size one. Electrics is something which I didn't really know much about. I feel pretty at home with wood, even though I'm not really a carpenter, but that's something I'm comfortable with. I just self-taught everything. Loads of YouTube videos, you know, forums, websites. I have a water pump down there and just my like gas manifolds. In terms of the gas, I've got a 38 litre LPG propane tank, just chassis mounted, which feeds in from the corner down here, and that supplies the gas hob and it supplies the Propex heater, which I really recommend. We're in the Alps in Jan. It was like minus 10, 11, and it kept us like well toasty, and it was nowhere near max. Like you could go so much hotter. Just here, there's a little switch for the water and also a little switch for the gas regulator. And it might be a bit over the top, but I got a little heating element for the regulator, which you can turn on and off there. And it's just in case, you know, it's really cold and you just want to make sure that you're going to get your gas in. That's pretty handy up here. A little metal knife rack, because we just kind of keep all our cutlery in a little tray, but you don't want to go stabbing yourself in there, and it's out of the way, and it's good for other things as well, like having something that is magnetic, especially since I've covered up all the magnetic metal. It's good to have something that you can just stick to stuff to. In terms of electrical side as well, we've got 200 watt solar panels on the roof. They run right down the van, in line with the fan, so they're kind of pretty aerodynamic. And I've found that between what we use, like 200 watts has kind of done us plenty, and it keeps us charged up. And you know, we kind of keep an eye on it just to make sure that everything stays above 12 volts, just because you want to stay above 12 and not deplete your batteries too much. Everything electrical wise, when you're doing a conversion, you want to think about this right from the start, because the lights go in and you want to put conduit in there before like your insulation and cladding, and you want to make that as easy as possible. And you can kind of come a crop if you're not too much on that. But I've made it so that this panel here, it's a bit of a feature panel. I wanted it to be like in a house where you've got beams, and just break up like kind of the length of all the cladding. And it's also really handy. Fly, lovely. It's really handy because all the electric feed and all the solar feed down here and go down to the batteries, and this can be taken off if ever needed. So I've got a cupboard here. We've got coat hooks on the outside, which is really handy if you've got wet coats, towels, that kind of stuff. You could almost do with more of them. I've got a full length cupboard here, and it's got a shelf up the top, and then it's just good because you can hang like proper stuff up. I'm thinking I might put the fridge in there maybe, whatever, but there's loads of space down the bottom. I've got just cupboards here all the way down, and they just kind of open up, and they're just kind of, I've left them as like one big kind of through cupboard. They work really well, and they're really easy to get at. When you're in bed and you just want to get like some socks or whatever, they're really easy to use and not too low that you're banging your head on them. One thing that's important with the build was, for me, I'm 6'6", and as you can probably tell, like the van's still a little bit too small for me, but having a big bed and a fixed bed, for me, like I didn't want to be changing the bed every day. I mean, and both of us, just when in the evening we're too tired and we're just like, oh, we just want to get in bed and go to sleep. So a big king size bed that was fixed was really important. And so what I did when I was building it, in terms of the height, I know people will like want to have bikes and stuff under there, but I kind of built it a lot off the seating and the table, which pulls out from underneath. So that comes out. I need to finish this a little bit, but the table like sits perfectly when you pull it out against your legs, and it's a nice way of having a good table that comes out all the way. In terms of fully out, you've got to just watch your legs, because there's a little bar that comes down and it'll come out all the way to there. And then there's some bolts here that you can just lock shut. And you know, you can get 3 people here having dinner, playing games, whatever. But like I said, I just want to kind of artwork it and make it a bit kind of mountainous and a bit more interesting. But you know, I'll get around to that. So that goes back in, and then for driving, one thing when you're designing a van and just when you're living in it or traveling in it is you got to remember everything moves forward and stuff has to be battened down, and it's even things like cupboards and racks. You know, if you make something too low, things will fall off it. And it's the same with this, just having a bolt that goes across it. I mean, or you could put something on the front just to stop it coming out when you're driving. So storage wise, it's really good. I've obviously got all the storage over the side there, but I've also got a lot under the van, and the skis come in from the back, down the sides of the bed, and then under the bed, we've just got a little curtain that Kate made, which is kind of nice because it hides the kind of, just the stuff like the toilet and bins and just our storage stuff. But we have some really good containers just to chuck stuff in that like you can chuck your laundry in and it doesn't smell because you can just shut the door and seal it up. We've got a little porta potty for when you need it, and that just slides down. It's pretty convenient. Another thing as well is just having a bar. It's a really simple solution, but just a bar and a couple of notches. You can just pop it in there and then everything will stop at the bar, like nothing will come past it, which for driving it just makes it easy. But again, when we stop up, we can just take it off, slide it down, and then everything slides out without any problem. So I'm not going to show you the secret compartment because it's a secret and I don't want the whole world knowing that. All right, so onto the bed. As you can see, we've got the lights on, the switches are here. I've made it so it splits into front 4 and back 4. That way, well, A, it's not wasting energy in the back. So say we're cooking, we can have the front on, turn the back off, or switch it around. And at night, what I thought, and I'm a bit sensitive to light, as Kate will agree with, and I like it quite dim. So what I've done is I've made it so we can turn both the lights off and just have a little strip light, again stolen from Nate, just under the cupboard. And we've actually got an app on the phone called Magic Home, and it just like wirelessly links to a little router pack in there. And you can change the brightness, the colour, you can do like disco and everything if you're into that. So yeah, so just pop that back on for a second. So yeah, we've got phone charging here. This just holds the phones when you're charging them, and it's just somewhere to put them. It's kind of not very technical, but it's just an offcut of wood that I thought, you know, it'll work, and I just routed the middle out. There's a little 12 volt there as well, if you wanted to put, say, a fan in, and you could like just screw it onto the wall. Great thing about wood, you can just screw anything anywhere, and then you can take it off if you don't want it. So something that really kind of annoys me sometimes, and I get asked all the time, is what is this? Is it a window? Like, how does it work? And the answer is it's not a window, and it's just a bedside table. In hindsight, I should have maybe built it a little bit higher, just so it sits a bit proud off the bed, but it's fine. It works really well just for cups of tea, and like books and phones and, you know, water bottles for in the night. So that works really well. Bed is a king size memory foam mattress. Like I said, it's really important just for us to have a nice bed because we're both pretty tall. And one thing that I think is it's actually quite rare, like compared to a lot of vans, is that when you're in this van, you shut the doors, you put the blind down. There isn't anything that gives it away as you're in a van. Like we feel like we're in a little lodge, and you kind of detach from the idea that you're just in a big white van. So we've got a few mementos just from our trips, which hopefully will keep growing. Our last trip was in January to the Three Valleys. It was amazing. We stayed in Maribel in a little town called La Rafour, which is just on the way in. In terms of location, it was just unbeatable because you could take the lift out like from the car park. You could ski in from a run that runs down into Rafour, and you can get a bus just into town every 10-15 minutes. I'm addicted to the love that you're giving. A little minor thing, but might be useful, are command strips. So I've got a mirror here. I don't really use it much, as you can probably tell, but it's basically just on command strip, so you can take it off and use it as and when you want, and then it just goes right back on really easily. Just pop it on, and then it's on. And we've done that with like photos and stuff like that, so that's really handy. Another little minor thing, but is worth thinking about, is when you come in, say you're pitched up somewhere in the middle of nowhere and it's pitch black, you come into your van, and I've got like a torch here, which is handy just for general bits and pieces. But what's even handier is when you open the door, you can turn on the light here just with a click, and it only runs off the 12-volt battery from the starter battery as opposed to the leisure batteries. Everything in the van in the back runs off the leisure batteries apart from that one light. And the reason was simply when you open the door, it will let you turn on that light. If the door's been open for a while, it won't. But it's really handy because you can turn that on, come into the van and flick on the main switches and just, you know, get all your stuff together. The finish on the wood, I've tried to again keep it nice and trim with the metalwork so you don't really see any of the metalwork, and it's kind of tidy and nicely finished. And so, like, in terms of installation, like as a kind of start point, you know, I followed a lot of kind of what is becoming like the standard stuff. So there's the aluminium foil, Celotex, spray foam, foil tape. And I know that's important because a lot of people think you can get away with gaff tape, but I used foil just because it's a lot less likely to mold or like disintegrate. In terms of the cladding, I haven't used the lightest or the cheapest, but I think it's a good choice. It's 12mm, straight from a building merchants. And I've got it so it runs through the whole van, which I think gives you like a really nice like long feel to it. Okay, a couple of things just like outside of the van. First off, tyres. I put some Michelin cross climates on. I've driven in snow on the motorway in France in them, you know, a few inches, and it was fine. And in terms of gas, just so you know, I think I said I got the 38-litre propane tank chassis mounted. It basically sits under the van right here, and then you've got the tank, you've got a board on it to like isolate it, and you can see the gauge and stuff. I do actually have a gauge in the van, which it's just got a little switch and it links to that and it tells me how much gas I've got, which is really handy, so you're not going to run out. And then to refill it, you've just got a little valve here, which just comes off. Right, so back of the van, it's not much to see really, but we built it for skis, so the skis can go in just down the side. I've built a little shelf, so you can get a few pairs in there. Another thing that's really helpful are these massive dumpers. I think I picked these up from Audi, and they were like 12 quid, but they're really handy. They're like 150 litres and they close shut, so you can just put kit in there, wet kit, whatever, if you just want to get it out of the way. This is quite handy. It's a little starter pack. Hopefully you never need it, but it's good. It's got jump leads, it's got a tyre inflator, and it's got a inverter, so they're all pretty handy for just having. Remember to leave a little hole for your door handle, which we don't really use, but it's good, you know, if you need to get out of the van, it's worth having. Just in terms of the general build, and just things like what you can't see, so the flooring, you know, there's a lot of work under there, and all the insulation. I've kind of logged it actually quite thoroughly on my Instagram, which is Vincent Van Johnson, but you know, that's kind of quite well covered there. And just, you know, like where we've been and bits and pieces we've been doing. Feel free to ask me any questions if you look at my van and wonder why has he done this or why has he done that. I'm happy to answer, and also just give a bit of advice. And I'm also open to doing commissions potentially as well. It's just something that, you know, Kate, I'm going to say that again. Kate needs to learn the hustle. I'm open to doing commissions for kind of a similar style van, but I'm pretty flexible with individual needs, so yeah, just let me know.
I hope you enjoyed that content. If you hadn't noticed, we do have an ebook that we sell, and the link is just in the description. It contains 160 pages crammed full of practical advice, walkthrough information, electronic schematics and part lists, which will make your job a lot easier for doing a van conversion, and it will save you time and money. Like, we're pretty confident that this ebook is useful to you, because if you don't, for any reason, you don't like it, you don't find it useful, you can literally just drop us an email and we'll give you a refund, no questions asked. And I really believe that anyone, regardless of their experience, can make a half-decent van conversion. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate you watching our content, and we put a lot of effort to make it interesting, informative, and find those cool projects that feature on our channel. Consider subscribing, leave a comment, and we'll see you next week.